Welcome back again. I'm David Kirkpatrick here with the continuing Wall Street Green Digital. Our final speaker of this block, and I believe of the event, is Jacquelyn Francis. Jacquelyn is a multi-purpose climate activist who is running something called the Global Warming Mitigation Project. We're going to hear a lot about that. She also is the founder of something called the Keeling Curve Prize, which rewards a variety of different kinds of actors for projects and things they do that significantly reduce the growth in carbon intensity in our atmosphere, that turn down the curve of CO2 concentration in our atmosphere. So she is the founding executive director of the Global Warming Mitigation Project. She's based in Aspen, Colorado. I'll come back and ask you some questions, Jacquelyn, but tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. And thanks for having me. And I'm so honored to be here and be your final speaker. That's pretty exciting. So I do have a degree in climate science, energy policy and climate science. And 7 years ago, I started something called the Global Warming Mitigation Project, which awards the Keeling Curve Prize to programs and projects internationally in 5 different categories that are designed to actually reduce greenhouse gases because they are both technologies and projects that are reducing or removing greenhouse gases and also enabling the education and the policy changes within the social and cultural pathways category. So that's what I do. We also have an internship program, but I can tell you a little bit more about that in my slide presentation. So let me just share. So I'm starting with why Wall Street should care, and talking a little bit about all the programs and projects that we have in our portfolio. And what I would say is everything needs to change. We are a very dependent society on oil, gas, and coal, and the systems around that, as well as agriculture and our land use. And all these things need to change in order for us to decarbonize our planet in a way that it's livable and sustainable. So what we do at the Global Warming Mitigation Project is, we find the leaders and those that are doing the work on the ground, and we deploy resources. And we are trying to help the solutions around the world, the climate solutions, succeed. So these are our 3 interconnected programs, and the Keeling Curve Prize, which we've had since the beginning, awards $50,000 to 10 different winners. So it's a pot of gold of $500,000 that goes to these 10 winners. But then we also create connectivity between capacity building with the Constellations Fellowship. We do marketing around blog posts, and we get them on panels and things like that to create success stories that are well beyond just giving a prize purse. And then what we've also done is we've expanded to include all the applications that are in our database, and that's the Climate Impact Conduit. And we actually have probably around 2,000 projects that are high scoring in the database. And we're figuring out ways to connect them to investors, to philanthropists that are looking to decarbonize their own sort of family foundations or their own carbon footprint. We're working with corporations that are looking to decarbonize their supply chains. And we're also looking to create a portfolio that could be used in the voluntary carbon market offset space. So this is a little, needs some updating, but I just want to point out that we've given a little over $2 million out to the programs and projects that have applied for the prize. And that's actually turned on to add-on funding to the tune of about $2 billion. So we can't take all the credit for that, but we do see so much success in the organizations that we've actually given funding to. And we see this as a very big multiplier effect. And I think that that's one way to actually look at how, maybe a small change can have a ripple effect that will turn into a big systems change. So why should Wall Street care? This is just one snapshot of how 81% of our energy in 2023 comes from coal, oil, and natural gas. And we are going to have to flip this script. And we need to change everything in order to get to a place where we're not getting our energy from these sources, because they do result in greenhouse gases. And if we are going to change our what powers the world, we have to just really look to the climate solutions around the world and reinvent everything that we're doing. Many of you probably know about the barriers. There's not enough money in the space, and there's really too much risk. So one of the things that we look at is that how do we de-risk solutions by increasing the diversity in a solutions set or a solutions portfolio. And these are just some high-level numbers of what needs to happen and how far we are from getting the funding into this space. And we are trying to help activate more funding in the space and more success stories so that people do want to invest in the climate solutions space. We actually look at what are the risks. We are trying to look at, how do we also encourage more regulations to support the climate infrastructure? But we mostly spend our time really trying to show people what are the amazing opportunities that we can all get excited about. This is a little bit of a summary of how we look at the entire database and how the conduit program is taking the innovators, which are basically the applicants that have applied for the prize, what we do for them, and how that actually integrates into who are the clients, who are the buyers who are looking to decarbonize their corporations or their lifestyle. And then how this flywheel of support, like a bridge system, can actually increase more funding through the entire cycle of innovators, buyers, and funders, and how this can turn into a whole new system of supporting climate solutions. So this is just a testimony from somebody who works with us, somebody who has actually won the prize. They have told us how amazing it is to work with us and how our unique approach to giving this prize turns into a multiplier effect and has just add-on funding capabilities that have taken them to new levels in what their success story looks like. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I do. And let me know if there are more questions out there.
I certainly have some. Thank you, Jacquelyn. That was a great presentation. I mean, and I don't know if you heard Bill Gross earlier, but if the question is why Wall Street should care, you've obviously laid out a number of reasons why, ethically, morally, practically, for survival of the human race, et cetera. But Bill made the very clear point, which I assume you agree with, that unless people can really make money doing this, the scale of capital we need will not move. And so is essentially what you're doing trying to show that is what can happen?
Yeah, and I think that that's a big part of what we're trying to show, is that there's so much opportunity and so much money to be made in this space. We need actually money to encourage that money to make more money. And we also need people to understand that if that doesn't happen, then money won't be good on a dead planet. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, where if we invest and, believe that investment is for the moral sustainability of our planet, then that investment can actually turn into something much bigger. And one example is, for instance, like fusion. It takes a lot of money to create fusion, but if we get there with that initial big chunk of change. And private companies are creating fusion at that sort of scale we need. It can actually like take us into an energy decarbonized future that will make that initial investment like incredibly valuable over time.
I don't know if you heard Charles Oppenheimer just a minute ago, but what do you think of his thesis that, you know, fusion is great, we should keep working on it, but fission is here now, we know how to do it, it can be driven down in cost, and that could be one of the primary solutions that needs to grow dramatically. Is that something you accept?
Yeah. And I also think that like it's always an yes and.
Right.
We're in a space where yes, and we need this, yes, and we need that. I mean, you saw the slide about 81% of our energy coming from oil, coal, and gas. I mean, that's a huge number. So yes, and we need to do this. Yes, and we need to do that. Yes, and we need to like, you know, decarbonize our food systems. So all of it is true. And so when people say things like, what about direct air capture? Well, we need that too, because yes, and we need all of it in order for us to have a stable climate future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you for saying that. It's interesting too, the way you're focusing on creating ecosystems. Clearly you're doing that very intentionally. There's a certain overlap with air miners, which we heard earlier before, which does that specifically in the context of carbon removal, but you're doing it across climate tech more broadly. I think that's impressive. We did get a question coming in from the audience from Kate McCune. I love it. You're finding ways to help those applicants who do not win a prize. I think putting their applications into AI can offer more insight we could not have imagined pre-AI. So it's just really good that she brought up this issue of the role of AI, since you are sort of looking at the whole panoply of things that are out there and that need to happen. How do you look at the question of whether this new era of AI we seem to be moving into, whether we like it or not, is going to significantly speed up our ability to act on climate, or maybe make it slower?
You know, we are trying to get a grant for AI like incorporation into our database. And, you know, we're trying to like actually create systems using AI that can speed up our work. Because I think if you speed up like, you know, the good things with AI, then yeah, great. I think what we're seeing is it being used for a lot of bad things as well. And I don't think that's going to necessarily change. But I think that there are ways that we can actually use it for good. And we do have a couple people on the team that are trying to help make those kind of systems work better.
So one of the things it seems like you do is you kind of serve as a broker of relationships. So you identify all these amazing startups, and I want you to talk about some of the specific ones that you're most excited about or most surprised by in a second. But once you identify them, either award them a prize or help encouraging them other ways, you do your best to try to help them find customers and to sort of serve as almost a consultant and an advisor to them, it sounds like.
Yeah, I do hate the words consultant because they just there can be a lot of ways you look at that. But I mean, progress happens at the speed of trust. And we're trying to be like a trusted partner to people where we look at the applications that come in and, you know, we're not guaranteeing that somebody's going to like make a return on their investment or guaranteeing that this organization will succeed and move forward. But we do put a lot of effort into making those things happen in a way where it's very authentic and organic. You know, we look at projects that have been around for a lot of years that are trying to like sequester carbon in like natural systems. And that is something that we're just like, yeah, they need more sort of low return on investment kind of income in order to do conservation efforts or, you know, mangrove restoration or things like that that are just like natural systems. And then we also look at these projects that could be like some kind of a home run, you know, like Lanza Tech was one of our winners. And when we met them, they were very small. And now they're a publicly traded company that's trying to do sustainable aviation fuel from carbon sources, from direct air capture, as well as other carbon sources in order to create products. And there are definitely some organizations in our database that went from, you know, very small, not people knowing about them, to something that is getting a lot of funding now and moving into, like I said, a publicly traded company. So that's pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, well, it is. And given that you have all these different categories and you're really very wide open in terms of the range of things that you are willing and able to support. What have been the parts of climate tech and climate innovation that have most surprised you, that you are most excited about, maybe that you might not have been excited about a few years ago?
You know, I've really seen a lot of growth in the like electric vehicle market, and that's been pretty exciting to see. You know, it's pretty exciting to see California make the decision that we're only going to sell electric vehicles, and then to see the kind of infrastructure around that have to build up quickly. So we've seen some technology changes there, as well as in like South America and other countries that are also like, they were so far away from any kind of EV structure. And now they're just like, yeah, we want to get involved in this as well. So we've seen huge growth and investment in that space. But I think that what I think is the most exciting is when we see a space that doesn't have a lot of innovation yet, and it's really like ripe for getting more investment and innovation. You know, I think there's a lot to be said.
What's an example of that?
Well, like for instance, you know, the oceans and the shipping industries, you know, it's hard to decarbonize, but we're seeing a lot of things pop up that, you know, are exciting. You know, one of our winners this year called Seabound was being able to capture emissions from the transport vessels in the ocean, the maritime industry, and then take that captured CO2 and offload it when they get on shore into another system where they're using it for maybe carbon capture in the cement industry or the steel industry or another industry that can use that CO2 or sequester it permanently, like I'm saying in the ideas of cement or steel. And that's pretty exciting. The decarbonization industries like sustainable aviation fuel are coming along, and you know, they do need a lot of funding and a lot of policy support. So that's something I see coming down the pipe pretty soon, because the airline industries really want to see big changes there.
It is exciting how some very surprising partners can emerge in places that are extremely disparate in ways that I think industry wasn't used to doing in the past. So somebody off-taker could come from a really surprising place. But I have two last questions. I want to ask you about, you're saying the topic today is why Wall Street should care. I'd like you to talk briefly about what you think the state of investor understanding is. And then I'd like you to finish by talking about what you think the state of our pushback against climate is. So start with Wall Street, and then give us your challenging answer on how we're doing on the big picture.
Well, you know, Mark Carney said during New York Climate Week something about how GFANZ, which is the Glasgow Financial Alliance Net Zero group, has something like $300 trillion that they have in their like under management, or in their like data, their group of alliance members. And that needs to flow into the space. So we need to like incentivize Wall Street so that it does do that in a way that happens faster. Because what I'm seeing is that there is so much kind of fear of risk that people are saying, no, I'm going to wait and see what the winners, who's going to like bubble up. And I find that to be really frustrating in this era of like hurricanes hitting. We're having to pay huge amounts of money for, you know, the insurance coverage, the like things that are happening right now, here and now. People are dying in Africa because they're starving to death, and they're talking about culling the herds of elephants and so forth to feed people. So we have to take this more seriously and work faster. And I think that's the biggest takeaway, is like we have to care more about getting there than making money to see who's gonna be where we put our investable dollars.
Thank you.
Wall Street needs to care about that, because as I said before, money does no good on a dead planet.
We got to wrap, but thank you, Jacquelyn. That was a great summary statement. We want to see more openness to risk and more de-risking. Thank you for being here, Jacquelyn Francis, and thank you all for joining us here at Wall Street Green Digital. That's all from me, David Kirkpatrick. Thank you again to all of our speakers, and Jacquelyn, thanks again.